All right, well, I'm going to get started. Like I said, my name is Ben Varick, and I'm the Outpost Program Director. My role here at camp is to support all of the Outpost trip groups, as well as the trip leaders and the participants. Anything that I can do to help, I'd love to help. So any questions that you have, or concerns, or thoughts, or ideas, please reach out to me. That's what I'm here for. So this webinar is going to be a short 10-minute presentation, followed by an opportunity at the end for questions. And then the whole thing is going to be recorded and uploaded to YouTube for anyone that missed this live webinar. All right, let's get started. So this webinar is in two parts. The first part is what you can expect when you get here. So the logistics and schedule of the trip, as well as some thoughts about the trip leaders and groups and risk management. And then the second part is how you can prepare, both with gear and how you can prepare your mindset so that you take the most out of this opportunity. And at the end, like I said, there'll be opportunity for questions. So let's jump right in. That first day, when you arrive, you'll get to camp in the afternoon, and that first afternoon will be spent checking into camp and doing the swim challenge, moving into your cabin, meeting your trip group, and getting settled into camp. You'll spend the next couple days preparing for your trip. And the most important part of this, in my mind, is practicing working with your trip group. So this will happen both in a facilitated sense, where all the groups will be facilitated on the low ropes course to start working together as a group. And then while you're packing out food and gear and getting ready for your trip, that's another opportunity to practice that. In addition to those things, you'll also have a day where you'll go and practice your whitewater skills on a local river. And this is an opportunity to work on your whitewater and to become comfortable in whitewater in an environment around here that perhaps the water is warmer, you're closer to a road, all of your food is in your boats. Then when you start your trip, you'll leave camp by bus and you'll drive for 2 days north. The first night you'll sleep on the bus. The second night you'll sleep at a campground. And then that third day you'll get dropped off at your put-in. And these put-ins are all along the road based on what route you do. Then 30 days later, and I'll get to that part here in a second, you get picked up and driven back to camp. When you arrive back at camp, you'll have a day of unpacking your gear and cleaning it all and debriefing your trip. And this is an opportunity to transition. It's an important part of the transition from your trip back home. Then this transition culminates in the paddle in and welcome home ceremony. So the last afternoon and evening that you're here at camp, we'll do this ceremony. You'll paddle in with the rest of the advanced trip groups. The Canucks and Mariners will paddle in from behind the island, and the Westerns will paddle in from South Bay. And everyone will converge on the waterfront steps, where any guests or family will be there to greet you. This is a time to share stories and welcome our trips back. That evening, there'll be dinner in Nash, and then there'll be a slideshow after dinner to continue sharing those stories. Please RSVP to this so we know how many people are going to be in Nash that evening. All right, so the part that I skipped over, the 30 days in the middle, let's talk about that. What is your trip going to be like? Northern Saskatchewan is beautiful and rugged and remote. The trip will be challenging and rewarding, full of opportunities for personal growth. This area of Northern Saskatchewan has a really rich ecology and a really rich history, human history of peoples that have been in the area. And it's a really cool opportunity to explore both of those, this pristine, remote ecosystem, and connect with some of the people that have been in this area in the past. With that remoteness comes a certain seriousness in risk management. Risk management is a really important part of this trip. And the most important part of risk management is prevention. It's a lot easier to prevent an injury than to try and heal it after the fact. And this sort of conservative decision-making should start now, a month or two before the trip starts. A rolled ankle now is going to impact how you'll be able to function on your trip this summer. In addition, that risk management responsibility is something that's shared by everyone in the group, and it's something that you all will practice with your trip leaders, making decisions It's a really important part of the trip. Some of the specific risks on this trip, the Canuck, like I said, are the remoteness, as well as whitewater. You'll be running some whitewater. The weather, large lake travel, and like anything else, the unknown, right? There are so many unknown risks that it's really important to be vigilant and aware while you're traveling. As part of your experience, as part of your trip group, will be Manito-wish staff, your trip leaders. And these trip leaders have been hired for their experience, not just their experience in canoeing and backcountry travel, but their experience in facilitating social and emotional growth and small groups. They're all really good at it, and they're really experienced Manito-wish leaders. These leaders go through a variety of trainings, both with outside organizations and with Camp Manito-wish. Some of the outside instruction and certifications that they have is all the trip leaders are Wilderness First Responder certified. Wilderness First Responder is a 9-day class focusing on administering first aid in the wilderness. They also go through an American Canoe Association Swiftwater Rescue course. They're lifeguard trained. And in addition to that, we do our own 11-day staff training. And this staff training is something that we do every year. And although it might be a review, we think it's important to refresh. This staff training focuses on small group facilitation, risk management, technical, emotional, and social skills, collaborative leadership, and culminates in a training trip that continues to work on those skills. The most, or probably one of the most profound parts of your trip will be your group. It's a pretty remarkable experience to travel in the wilderness for 30 days with such a small group. Your group might be 4 or 5 or 6 people. And this small group is going to be the center of your trip. Some trip groups go the entire time without seeing another person. And to be in the wilderness that remote with this small of a group can be really rewarding. There's going to be times when the group is in sync and harmony, and can be really challenging. There's going to be times that people are frustrated and arguing with each other, and that's all right. That's part of the experience. We ask that you come to camp ready to work hard, to work with your group. Building a team that is tested as much as these trip groups are takes a lot of work, and we ask that you come ready to do that. We also ask that you come with an open mind and no expectations about your trip mates. You may know some of your trip mates from previous trips, but people change, and it's important to let people be who they want to be. So coming with no expectations is really important. The more invested you are in building a good team, the better your group will work together, and the more you'll get out of this trip. The next section of the webinar, I want to focus on what you can do to prepare in the next month or two before your trip. And the first part of that is equipment, gear. You all should have received a recommended packing form from camp. And if you haven't, it's available on our website. And there's a couple pieces in there that I want to highlight. The first of which are boots and shoes. So this is a really important part of your personal equipment. And I like to think of your footwear in 2 different categories. The first is wet shoes, shoes that you're gonna be wearing while you're paddling and portaging and lining your boats up rapids, walking in the river, walking on slippery rocks. You can see in this picture that person walking on some rocks near the river. It's important that your shoes have good traction. So it's important that they have good traction, that they have good ankle support, that they're durable, they can handle up to the rigors of 30 days, really intense use, and that they're comfortable. Make sure that when you get your boots, that you spend some time walking around in them, hiking in them. The second pair of footwear that I want to talk about are your camp shoes, your dry shoes. These should also provide some good support. You might be going on some hikes, and they're a good backup in case something happens to your wet shoes. So they should also provide adequate support. The second piece of gear that I want to talk about are dry bags. Dry bags are pretty important. We bring these large canvas packs for all of the equipment, and we line those with plastic bags, but those plastic bags are not waterproof. And so keeping your gear dry is important. I'd recommend maybe a 20-liter bag for your gear, They also make these really snazzy waterproof stuff sacks that work really well for sleeping bags. The second part of preparation is what you can do to prepare yourself for this trip. You can physically prepare by exercising and going paddling as much as possible if you have access to boats in a lake or rivers. And the second part is mentally preparing. And there are 2 prompts that I want to leave you with that I think if you come to camp with some clarity on these prompts, you're going to get a lot out of your trip. The first prompt is, what will you add to the group? And how do you hope to grow from this experience? So that's the end of my prepared presentation. I'd like to open it up now to any questions that people might have. You can either unmute yourself or use the little chat icon to send me a message in the chat. All right, well, like I said, my role here is to support you however I can. Please reach out to me if you have any questions or concerns. My email address is outpost.director@manito-wish.org, MANITO-WISH.org. Please let me know if you have any questions. Have a good night.